Ascending forward, message number 32. Conversations with the collective consciousness of the starseeds from Earth today. Earth is already ascended. The Earth has and maintains its collective unconscious, which is a creative manifesting force of attention from the Source. That is, what the collective agrees on, what is and is not real, possible and not possible, will create frequencies because the thinking amalgamates with that of others, because all are connected, and therefore all together reinforce manifesting a reality according to their beliefs. This creates a soup of frequencies, which is what affects or defines a place or level or existential density. These mental frequencies are a high-frequency gravity flow or concentration of attention from the original source in the form of high gravitational frequencies. This means that just as on Earth, each planet or group of consciousnesses creates a collective, and the collective itself can be seen as another thinking, creating entity. Therefore, the Earth has its collective unconscious, as does Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and so on. In other words, the dominant frequency of the collective unconscious mind has immense manifesting ability as a being in its own right, that the Creator is experiencing itself through contrast. So, as we have explained before, time, the temporal progression that is the animation of events and the speed with which they develop, is a byproduct directly related and proportional to the collective unconscious that generates it, which explains why there are differences in time slip between all the planets, as explained before. Consciousness and its perception is different in each of them, since time and consciousness are two sides of the same coin. The perception of time cannot be given without consciousness, and being conscious depends on a temporal perception. Time is not a byproduct of consciousness. It is consciousness itself. Therefore, modify and control your consciousness, and you modify and control your time. You do not need time machines to travel through time. You do not need starships to go from place A, which many are running away from, to go to place B, which many want to go to. You just need to control your consciousness. The level of consciousness of the Earth, which is the sum of those living inside it and those outside it, is the result of another soup of collective unconscious among planets, suns, and constellations, which in turn is part of another collective unconscious, which is the galactic level. And in turn, the cluster of galaxies will have its own collective unconscious, and so on, until it becomes the Source itself. So whether the Earth is spherical, rather like a geode, does not depend so much on what the human collective unconscious imposes within, but mainly on the collective unconscious of galactic levels, of which the Earth is a part of. Each place, each system, will have its frequency that it is related to and is also being altered and influenced by its surroundings. As each place has its specific frequency, This can be and is used for stellar navigation, as spoken of before. Remember that a frequency of a particular place is not something fixed, because it is consciousness. So it is a flow of consciousness that varies with the stimulus, thus giving a progression that is perceived as time. Also remembering that the Earth, as well as any other being with consciousness, does not have a fixed frequency as it varies with the stimulus. The stimulus of the star seeds assists in raising the collective unconscious mind. Similarly, the frequency of the collective unconscious mind, the dominant frequency, can influence the star seed's frequency in the opposite direction. Just see the stimulus of the regressive part of the Earth as a minimum. Because it is a tiny part of the galaxy, it can also be seen as the external collective unconscious, in which the Earth is immersed and is of higher frequency than itself, so it would force it to rise using the principle of the dominant frequency that tends to equalize all frequencies. And this explains, from another angle, the famous planetary ascension story. And those who do not develop a higher consciousness will remain in a low frequency, as we have explained before. The low frequencies, equivalent to evil, will tend to destroy themselves because the main property of the regressive and malevolent is to be entropic and therefore self-destruct. This explains why regressive beings and entities depend on beings with soul and consciousness to feed on their creative and manifesting force, since they themselves cannot sustain themselves because they tend to self-destruct. Earth has always been ascended. The problem is that humans do not see it through their collective unconscious, because they see everything through that lens of negativity imposed by the matrix. That is, they only see what they can see according to their level of frequency and perception, which depends on their level of personal and collective consciousness. Therefore, the Earth is not the problem. It is humans and their ideas. Most humans perceive much less than what is available. For example, those who do not even know that Venus exists, or do not care about Venus because it is not profitable in their daily lives, limit their awareness and keep manifesting their external realities in the 3D matrix. Earth is already ascended and always has been. The problem is humans and their perception and not the Earth. It is just that humans, always thinking that they live in a world that is external to themselves, understand in their own way that the Earth, what they perceive as external to themselves, will ascend sometime in their future. The Earth will not ascend, it already is. What will ascend or not are the humans or human collective that will then see as if the Earth has ascended. Humans and all beings with consciousness do not live in a world, but are the world that they live in. It is all in their minds. Another dynamic adding to the problem is that the baby or child does bring the matrix with it from before birth, because it comes from their previous lives. Therefore, they are generating the 3D matrix even from the outside. This lends itself to seeing everything with determinism. The problem here with determinism is that determinism only exists by decision of the very collective and individual to experience that determinism as the very definition of living in a material, corporeal world. That is to say that this determinism, which is real, is a conscious manifestation intended to be experienced as such, and not an inherent quality of the universe itself. Reincarnation over and over again, looping and experiencing the same or similar realities, only exists as a manifestation of the expectations of the individuals themselves and their collective. Using or quoting Carl Jung, all the problems of mankind, even natural disasters, wars, diseases, and tragedies, are not the result of external forces, but are the result of its mental disorder. As long as the collective desires this, and the souls who enter into the experience do so because they are in accord with that experience, that is, because that is what they wish to experience, the cycles continue in timeless loops. And the souls that live there within that collective, rejecting the idea of having desired to experience that, have either entered with other stellar ideas of service and inspiration for others, or have evolved their own changes internally to the degree that they are no longer compatible with living within that human collective. These are the ones that will leave and follow their own evolution from their point of view. In other words, we create our own timeline, and anyone else's version is perfectly fine. There is no question that there are enormous changes occurring on Earth, and they are occurring as a result of what we, our thoughts, us, working through our own shadows, working through our programmed beliefs and changing them, is what is directly changing our outer reality. Therefore, what someone else chooses to believe is perfectly fine for them. If you choose a God model, a Satan model, or believe that we are in a battle of light versus dark, then that is perfectly fine and perfectly reflects a 3D programming. We are here to add light, to create a balance, by working through the old beliefs and paradigms that have existed for the last 12,500 years, which have led humanity to where it is. The only essential or must listen to news to resonate to in order to raise our frequency is the desire and commitment towards working on ourselves, and that is doing our inner work. The only certainty is that everyone is returning to Source. How they achieve this and when they achieve this is in such a multitude of different ways that are incomprehensible in a 3D understanding, however all ways are valid. So there is no wrong way, as everything is there for us to learn and grow through. If what you listen to resonates with you and helps lift you or inspires you, then move towards it. Nothing is set in stone. We each create our own individual timelines, and when enough people have similar views and ideas, they then create a group timeline, but still operating their own individual timelines. Earth changes are not coming. Earth is already 5D+. However, most humans cannot see that, as they are still playing out their version of themselves in 3D. Those that raise their personal frequency to match the 5D Earth frequency that already exists will leave the 3D Earth And those that choose to stay and play out the 3D versions of themselves will remain. So there really is not a planetary ascension as such where humanity ascends. Where humanity ascends and creates a 5D Earth. Souls come to the 3D Earth for a 3D experience, to grow spiritually through their 3D experiences. Contrast. In other words, 3D is not going away. 3D Earth supports 3D ideas. It is every individual soul's choice to stay 3D or raise their frequency to 5D. There is no planetary change that will magically shift everyone's consciousness. Remember, you are already 5D, and this 3D experience is a very small part of your overall soul's journey. You choose how long you stay in 3D. Tiwana, Tawa, Tiawa.